Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 Digital Desk. We've heard so much about no tax on tips. It was actually signed into law in the big, beautiful bill that President Trump signed earlier this month. But what does that mean for the tens of thousands of service workers all across Memphis and the Mid-South? And who's eligible? How much money could you save? And how do you keep track of it all? Well, these are all great questions, and I'm happy to be joined on the Action News 5 Digital Desk by Memphis employment attorney Alan Crone joining us once again. So, Alan, I know that you probably get a lot of questions with regards to this issue. Where do we begin on this? What do you tell some of those clients, perhaps people who call you and ask, hey, does no tax on tips apply to me? Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. Thank you for having me on. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, let's get right to it. I mean, basically, no tax on tips applies to anybody who gets tipped, whether it's restaurant service workers, valets, anyone like that who receives tips. There's also no tax on overtime. So that's a big benefit for some of those same workers who work overtime, might be eligible for time and a half. There's no tax on that. Of course, that's a much larger universe of folks. So, the big, beautiful bill for working people was beautiful because this is going to save real working people money from taxes and hopefully will, now, you mentioned, keeping up with it. Now, you got to keep up with it in case you're ever audited because there is a cap on it. It's about $25,000 of tips. So you're taxed on things above that. But it is a good step forward for working class Americans, I think.
Okay, good to know. And thank you for weighing in on that. I was going to ask about a cap. Is there a cap on something like this? And what do you recommend, Alan, as the best way to keep track of these tips and overtime as well?
Well, we're all walking around with more computing power in our phones than that was used to send folks to the moon back in the 60s. So there are all kinds of apps out there where you can, log your tips at the end of your shift to keep track of it all so that when it's time to go to do your taxes, you can provide all of that to your tax preparer. Sometimes if you're paid by credit card, the company will give you, a record of that as well. And the last thing is it's old school, but there's nothing that replaces a good spiral bound notebook. You can get them in all kinds of sizes and just keep track of it that way. I would imagine, most of my clients who are restaurant workers, for example, they keep track of it pretty much as you go, and make sure you're keeping track of the tips that you keep. Some, in some situations you may, if you're a waiter or waitress, you may split your tips with the bus folks or, someone else in the facility. And so make sure you're only you're keeping track of all of that so that you don't, you're not getting taxed on money that you didn't actually receive because you paid it out to someone else.
So let me ask you, you mentioned it just briefly. Is there a cap? Is $25,000 the cap on this?
Yeah, yes, $25,000 is the cap. So anything above that, you'd be taxed on regularly.
Okay, got it. And so essentially, you're saving an individual who's in the service industry, gets tips, whatnot. I mean, how much are they going to be able to save? Is it ballpark?
Well, it depends on the tax bracket, but anywhere from a third to 25% of that 25,000. If you hit the top. Andrew, your producer, told me there would be no math, So I don't want to do that math in my head, you know, on the fly. But someone can do that, and you know, that's thousands of dollars. I mean, for most of my clients, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in savings is a huge amount, and so I think it's a great thing.
Yes, and you mentioned, and I just want to reiterate, this is anyone who gets tipped or anyone who receives some sort of tip, overtime, that sort of thing, is eligible. It doesn't have to be a certain, waitress, server, host, that sort of thing, right?
Well, that's right. Mainly, I think we're looking at restaurant workers who are the most tipped, and they, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but there's also what we call the tip credit, which is a special wage and hour law for folks that are customarily tipped. And if a large part of your revenue or compensation is tip based, then this applies to you. And then if you're eligible for overtime, the overtime element of this applies to you as well.
Anything else you want to mention before we let you go, Alan? This has all been very helpful for the thousands of people who watch us each and every morning.
I would say this, that the tip credit, particularly for restaurant workers, is often abused. And so if you feel like if someone feels like they're sharing tips with people they shouldn't be sharing tips with, or you're not getting credit for all your tips, then you ought to go see the Department of Labor or an employment lawyer about that, because as people who are subject to it, and I'll tell other listeners and watchers too, most waiters and waitresses are paid $2.13 an hour plus tips. And so tip your waiters and waitresses. Over tip your waiters and waitresses if they do a good job, because that's where they're getting most of their compensation. And most people don't really know that.
Great advice there from Memphis employment attorney Alan Crone on the Action News 5 digital desk. Alan, again, thanks for your time here. We appreciate all the knowledge. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Always glad to be on the program.
Appreciate it, Alan.